So, good morning. Welcome back to our mindfulness sessions. Lovely to see everybody again. So, we are working with thoughts today, and we have just been listening to the meditation from one of the resources I mentioned earlier. That's not back to front, is it?
No, that's fine.
Fabulous. The little mindfulness workbook. So this is kind of a potted version of an introduction to mindfulness. So it's quite a nice light touch, particularly if it's your first time of coming to mindfulness, and you can just read it, and it's got some exercises to do as a course if you want to do it, or you can do this alongside other more in-depth introduction to mindfulness courses. And they have free mindfulness meditations that you can download from SoundCloud. So that's what we've done. We've been listening to their mindfulness meditation number 6, the mindfulness of breathing, working with thoughts. So if you want to go off and have a listen to that and then come back, then please do. Otherwise, we'll be telling you a little bit about what was in the meditation right now. So in summary then, so the meditation we've been doing starts us off, as always, by getting us grounded and settled, so getting us sitting comfortably or lying comfortably, and then getting grounded and by focusing into the breath and having a separation from our chattering mind by noticing our thoughts. So taking a step back, noticing thoughts, and then trying to draw our attention back to the breath. So you know, we've been doing that in several of the meditations so far. So we've been doing that, and then we've been just having a look at our thoughts and just letting thoughts come and go, and just coming back to the breath, basically. A nice, simple, but quite relaxing meditation, I think. Mm-hmm. So have you got any comments on today's meditation, Anne or Leslie?
I have. I think it's a particularly encouraging meditation, because recently in a different class I listened to a meditation which sort of said the aim is eventually you'll get to a place where these thoughts don't come. And I thought that was not a good message at all. Whereas this is different. It's saying, yes, they will come. They will always come. That's fine. You know, so it doesn't put you off trying to meditate.
Yeah.
It's encouraging. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I think that's important, especially if you're new. I think that's important. You're an absolute Zen master or whatever. You'll probably never get to that point.
No.
You know, it doesn't matter. The practice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, because otherwise it can seem just like an impossible task that you can't even begin, because why begin if you're just going to never get there? But I like the approach. This book is mentioned on the Breathworks site, and they've kind of got links with Breathworks. They're not, you know, then it's not the Breathworks manual, but it's endorsed by them, and that's very much their approach of being human. And being human means we've got a scattered mind and a distracting mind, and that is just part of who we are. And that's not an issue. It's not a problem. We mustn't feel bad about it. You know, just being compassionate with ourselves, really, and thinking, I've got this scattery mind, but actually I can just use my mindfulness muscle to just be able to sometimes step away from it and get a bit of peace. Just working with my breath or whatever other anchor you're using. Yeah.
I found it particularly restful, and I would have quite happily sat there with my thoughts floating by, and then focusing back in on my breathing for another 5 or 10 minutes. It was really most effective. And it's like Leslie said, it's hard. It's really hard because we're not wired to not think. And it's so hard to not think, because when you're resting, your mind thinks, oh well, it's time now, I can make this suggestion, I can make that suggestion. Well, actually no, you can't for the moment. You can jolly well wait. You float off in that direction while you're breathing. And it's really very, very good, because well, Claire and Faith know that conversation I had with them last night was, I'd got a number of things that I was quite agitated about. And, you know, I've been doing this mindfulness, and you almost, at times like that, when you do, your mind is full and there are worries, you almost think, oh, I haven't got time to do that. I've got to do all this worrying. And I haven't got to do all the worrying, because, as we've said many, many times, and lots of people have said it, worrying isn't going to change it at all. So you need to think, you need to take a step back, and you need to put everything into perspective by focusing just on the moment and what's happening to you with your breathing and how your body feels. Very, very different, and it does slow things down, and it makes you happier to live with yourself and give yourself time.
Yeah, and to reduce your stress levels while you're at it.
Definitely.
Should I just mention that Faith, who Anne's just mentioned, is our drumming teacher, because us ladies do African drumming together as well, incidentally. And Anne's got a big event coming up that's keeping her awake at night and stuff. So we were talking about mindful approaches to that.
Which I should have known about. And then Leslie turned to me and said, oh, you're forgetting your mindfulness. Well, I wasn't forgetting my mindfulness. It's just that something else had crowded in. And that's easy to do. And, you know, you have got to take that step back.
Yes, and because we're human, even if we have come across mindfulness and started working our mindfulness muscles, we still go into default mode, which is to think, I've got to be awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, I've got to worry about stuff, because otherwise something will go wrong. If I don't worry about it, it'll go wrong. But, you know, actually, it's probably not a true thought. So, and we'll be coming on to that in the session today. So let's move on then to our session concepts, and we'll share the screen, get a handout going. There we go. So you can see that okay?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so working with thoughts, concept number 1, you don't have to believe everything you think. So when we were just talking about Anne's current situation of thinking, if I don't worry about this, it'll go wrong. Yeah, if I don't wake up and think things through, then when I go on my trip, the car that we're hiring might not arrive, or the planes might be late, or whatever. Yeah, whether to believe that version of events or not, it's quite relevant here. So the idea is scientists do these tests, don't they? And somebody's worked out that we have thousands of thoughts every day. So does that resonate? Do you feel like you have thousands of thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes 700 of those will be the same thought, perhaps. Particularly if you've got something you're worrying about. Yeah. So and trying to stop the thoughts or clear the mind is like trying to stop the tide, like King Canute, you know, standing there with his hand up. It's not going to happen. And that's what we've just said, and that's what you were just saying, Leslie, about, you know, there can be a concept out there, or there can be a misunderstanding that mindfulness is about clearing the mind. Well, it's not, because the mind won't ever be clear. While you're still living, your mind will be thinking and whirring away. But as we've talked about before, using mindful practice, we can try to spend less time in thinking mode and more time in sensing mode. So in the last session, we were talking about doing mind and being mind. And it's the same kinds of concept with just slightly different wording. So doing mind is where the mind's worrying, processing, judging, planning, plotting. And being mind is just the mind that is being used to sense what's going on right now, thoughts, smells or sounds or sensations in the body. So same sort of thing, thinking mode and sensing mode. So when we're in sensing mode, we can quieten down on the thinking mode and refocus our awareness into the body, taking it out of just the mind and back down into the body. Interestingly, in that meditation, they were talking about if you're having a particular trouble focusing on your breath, try anchoring it really down in the belly. And you know, often we can use the technique of putting the hands onto the belly or the rib cage to kind of reinforce that, to get anchored down there in a sensation, in the rising and in the falling of the belly as we breathe in. But it can be hard to ignore our thoughts because we have thousands of them, and because they chatter, and sometimes they chatter so loudly they wake us up in the middle of the night, or we're trying to do something else and our thoughts just keep coming back to a particular thought. So sometimes they can be really loud and compelling, can't they? But using mindfulness, we could choose how to respond to them and learn how to step back. So a nice illustration of that is we can think of our thoughts as other things like buses or trains.
Yeah.
So we stood there at the stop and a bus pulls up, and we can decide, do we want to get on board and go for a ride to wherever the bus is going to take us, or do we want to notice that bus and decide, actually no, we don't want to go to that particular destination, so we'll say no thank you, we'll ignore it and we'll come back to the bus stop. So I quite like that analogy. So making choices, looking at our thoughts rather than from them. So if we're at the bus stop, looking at the bus, rather than just automatically jumping on the bus and then being taken for the ride and looking from those thoughts.
Yeah.
When we look from our thoughts, so if we've got on the bus and we're riding along, we tend to believe what they're telling us. So we're all embroiled, we haven't had a step back, our thoughts are our thoughts, or they must be real. And then we look at the world from the point of view of whatever our thought is telling us. So when we look at them, we can choose whether to believe them and whether to get on board or not, or to let them pass. So that's quite a big concept, isn't it? Yeah. So ways of describing our thoughts. So when we did the course before, we talked about that and talked about getting on the bus and the train, and then other people had other ways to describe their thoughts. Can you remember the sort of things that we came up with?
I visualize them. I mean, we've talked about clouds floating in the sky, but I visualize them. You know, you blow a dandelion clock, and you may get lots crowded in, but eventually they waft away. Well, if you're lucky and the day's breezy, they will waft away. I always think like that. Sometimes you'll blow a dandelion clock and there won't be many come off, and that's a good day when you're not too crowded. But when you get a lot, and they're fighting for priority in your thought process, that's when you've really got to stand back and let the wind take them away. Because that's the way I feel it comes to. It's usually lots of things at once, lots of things that you're trying to balance, or then it will only be the odd. It's lovely when there's only the odd one, but sometimes there are a lot of things, and that's when you really need the ability to sit back, look at them, because their dandelion clocks do make lovely little seed heads, don't they? And it's quite attractive, and just watch them float on. And then there'll be somebody else's trouble, because that's what happens, isn't it? The seeds fall on someone else's garden. I suppose that's not a very kind way of looking at it.
I like that analogy. Not that we're blowing them on other people, but you know, that we're blowing away those little seeds. And I guess I was just thinking, oh, you could use that when you were meditating, couldn't you? If you like to use imagery, when you're breathing out, you could be gently encouraging them to blow away. I don't know if that had occurred to you before, or just something that came into my mind.
I find it helpful with thoughts just to label them, just to label it. It's a thought.
Right.
You know, simply recognising it as a thought. It's not happening now, it's a thought.
Right.
Find that help. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you stick with it's a thought, or do you label individual thoughts like, that's the mind worrying again, or that's the thought badgering me again, or that's the thought plotting again? Do you go into more detail, or is it just it's a thought?
I just try to think it's a thought. It's not me, it's a thought. It's not me, it's just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice and simple. Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look on moving on to danger of believing an untrue thought. So when we look at our thoughts, we might realize that not all our thoughts are true or helpful. Thoughts are just thoughts. They might not be as it is. So a lot of our thoughts are harmless, but some can cause us to suffer unnecessarily. So an example that's given is, this is too hard, I can't do it. That might be a thought that you're having. And it's probably not true. But if you believe it, it can have all sorts of impacts. So it can make you stressed or angry or depressed. You might give up. You think, oh, I've given up. Oh no, and I've given up again. Therefore, actually, I'm not good at doing things, and I'm not good at trying things. You know, you can start to add on a bit of a snowball kind of effect, or I'm a failure. And that can turn into a general sense of low mood, depression, and unwillingness to try other things. So learning to look at our thoughts is not easy, because we have probably spent a lifetime of our thoughts kind of grab us and take us along for the ride. And maybe it hadn't occurred to us before we discovered mindfulness that there is a way you can step back and make decisions about thoughts and whether to believe them or not, and whether to go along with them, and whether to even think about them. So you might have got on board and travelled with a thought for a while before even noticing. But with mindfulness, once you notice, you can choose to let it go. And again, you know, we're human beings, therefore we've got habitual behaviours which can be really hard to change. If we've had a lifetime of jumping on the train and riding along like the clappers, before thinking, actually, I can get off at the next station if I want to, and I can go back to the stop and go somewhere else if I want to. Again, you know, part of being human. So has anything occurred to you, thoughts that might not be true or helpful? I don't know if there's any of your current situational thoughts, Anne, that are worrying you that might not be true.
Apart from a great long list that I could give you, no, let's be sensible. There are things sometimes that you say to someone, and you realise it's not come across exactly how you meant it to come across. I was somewhere yesterday and I was talking with some people, and this wasn't actually me that said this, you'll be surprised to know, but it's an instance. And the one lady spoke to the man. We were at Whittick Manor in actual fact, and the man was raking the leaves upon the grass, and I was working with the one lady. We were moving books, and they'd obviously had a conversation before I'd come into this scenario, and she shouted across to him. She says, "Oh, you'd be ideal as Father Christmas," and she put her hands like this, you know, in Father Christmas has got a big round belly sort of thing. And I looked across at this man raking the leaves, and he didn't have a big round belly at all. But he said, "Oh, I have been putting some weight on." And she realised that, "Oh, what have I just said? What have I just said to him?" And she says, "I didn't mean that. How did it come out?" So she went hurtling off over to, because this was all being shouted so everybody could hear the conversation. She went hurtling off to talk to him, obviously to say, "That's not what I was meaning. You would be a lovely Father Christmas when we get the grotto sorted." That was what she was thinking. And of course, unfortunately, she did the motion of a nice round tum. And then afterwards, she kept on. "I wish I hadn't said that to him. I really," and we were doing, "Oh, I do wish I hadn't said that. You see, he took it the wrong way." And I said, "Well, you went and apologised to him, didn't you?" And she said, "Well, I did." She said, "But he seemed all right." And I said, "Well, you can't change it." I said, "It's been said, it's been done." I said, "You've just got to let it go." And I said to her then, "You ought to come to some of our mindfulness sessions." Our mindfulness sessions. I said, "That would do you the world of good in this instance." So there was a situation where it wasn't me. I mean, yes, it could have been, because people who know me think, "Yeah, you could have easily said that." But she was really upset. She was going over and over this thought, what she just said, and she was getting more and more worked up about it. And after she'd come back to me for about the fifth time, "I do wish I hadn't said that. What was I thinking of?" That was when, you know, you say, you can't change it. It's done. It's happened. It's not going to make any difference if you keep bringing it back and upsetting yourself. You've just got to let it go. She dealt with it at the time. She spoke to him. She explained. She realised the misunderstanding that whether he had, he didn't seem to be particularly offended. But
although maybe then forever and a day, those comments will just keep playing over his mind.
I might have to go and have a word.
I've put on some weight, and everybody's noticing that my belly is looking a little rounder and a bit like Father Christmas. So and we do get those kind of messages, you know, we get messages from our own mind, and we do get them from the outside world, don't we? Yeah. And we can just play them over and over again and think, well, they must be true because somebody said it.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily so, because poor man didn't have a Santa belly.
I need to go and have a word with him too and say, "Would you like to join our mindfulness sessions?"
Yes. Leslie, anything spring to your mind?
Well, I think just that sort of just smacked of rumination, really. Just you do go over things that you've said in the past.
Yeah.
And I think mindfulness is great for that, because it does help you to let them go.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it now. It's gone. You just do the best you can at the time.
Yeah.
And I think mindfulness there as well. I find very often now, before I will say something, I will consider more than perhaps I would have done before I did mindfulness. Consider just what I'm going to say, how it's going to come over.
Yeah.
So you don't put your foot in it quite so often.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, being more mindful about what you say to other people. Yeah. Okay, yes, and rumination. I said that to somebody and they're going to think this, that and the other, and what about, and he must think I'm terrible, and yeah. So, mindfulness, a great tool for rumination, because it doesn't make any difference, does it? It just makes us stressed and upset and so on. Yeah, okay.
Yourself and move on,
Yeah. Okay. And then, so when you're doing courses on mindfulness, so it tends to be a mixture of direct practice meditation, having a think about a concept, and then thinking about a practice that you can do to kind of strengthen up your mindfulness muscles. So this week's mindfulness suggestion for an activity. The thinking is that we spend a lot of time in doing mode, which we talked about before, which doesn't necessarily mean doing things physically, but can also involve overthinking things, thinking mode. The mind working overtime, doing what it does, judging, comparing, labeling, etc. So, and being on the go physically and or mentally, neither of those is good for us. And it can make us stressed and it can make us physically ill. So mindfulness practice, taking breaks during the day, can help us to take time out from doing mode, not just physically, but also taking time out from thinking, worrying, ruminating, plotting, planning, judging. So a good habit to cultivate to develop your mindfulness practice. So suggestions can include, starting by giving yourself permission to take a break. And we've talked about this, haven't we? Our society does not encourage us to kick back, does it? No. It encourages us to keep going, keep striving. Or if you're sitting down, you're being lazy and you should be up and doing instead. So we could start by just giving ourselves permission to take a break, to do a bit of meditation, to go and have a sit outside and look at the trees, what have you. And if we build in micro breaks, then sometimes it can be too much to think, well, I'm going to take half an hour out. I haven't possibly got half an hour in my day but I can give myself permission to take a little 5 minutes where I just go and sit outside and I notice what's around me and I do a bit of breathing. So taking a rest from doing mode, so stopping, getting grounded, being in the body. So pick a way to be in being mode. So can be going outside, having a sit down. Have you got any other favourite ways of having a rest from doing mode, being in being mode?
Yeah, I think here the 3-minute breathing space is really good.
Right.
That's one of my DMs, the 3-minute breathing space.
Yeah.
Where you just do a brief body scan, ground yourself, and 3 minutes. And nobody need know you're doing it. You can be just, going through it, and I find that really helpful.
Yes.
Then you come back to whatever you were doing, and suddenly it doesn't seem so difficult. You've effectively stepped back from it for a little while. You can come back, and you perhaps see it from a different angle, and it's easy to deal with. Yeah.
So that the formal meditation of the 3-minute breathing space, you can download that from SoundCloud as well, from Breathworks, or once you've kind of got the hang of what it involves, you can just take time out and do it, even if you don't have a recording with you or whatever. So sitting and scanning the body. How does it feel? How do my feet feel resting on the floor? How do my legs feel, etc., etc., and having a little travel around. That's nice. Yeah.
That's a nice. Sorry. Yeah. It's a nice idea. Yes.
Yeah. And it's sort of asking yourself, what's the weather pattern like in my head? What's going on? Is it stormy? Is it calm? Is it sunny? Just recognising how you feel and what's going on.
Yeah, the weather pattern. They do talk about that, don't they? And that's quite nice as well. In terms of we talked about clouds, haven't we, today? And thoughts are clouds, and they do pass by. But weather. I mean, particularly in Great Britain, weather never stays for long, does it?
No.
You might have a horrendous storm, but it won't be here, and then we'll have something different. And such is the same with our thoughts.
Yeah.
So changing your activity, just doing something different can make you more mindfulness. If you're on autopilot, doing, thinking, just getting up, having a walk around, doing something different can help us to just, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to be more mindful while I'm doing this. I think you mentioned in a previous session, and just being mindful over breakfast.
Oh, yes, because I really enjoy breakfast. It's my favourite meal of the day. So I do enjoy my breakfast. But I often do something else while I'm eating it. I might be looking at the news on my phone. I might be doing that. Or I've got my iPad and I'm having a look at that. And I thought, no, I enjoy this meal. It's my favourite meal. So why am I distracted? So now I have my cereal, I have a cup of tea. I enjoy mixing my cereal up. I make my own muesli and I enjoy what's going in. And that's part of the thought process. Oh, I'm going to put a bit extra of this in today. I'll have some nuts and a few fruits. So I put all these little bits in, and then I sit and I do enjoy them now. I don't distract. I'm not distracted by other things. And I am lucky enough to be retired. So breakfast when I was working was shoveled down in an upright position, the very last way you should eat anything. Upright, shovel, shovel, shovel.
As in when you were walking along, do you mean?
Well, no, I'd usually be in the house. I'd be in the house, but I was upright because I was thinking of other things, doing other things. And now I've really thought, no, you've got the opportunity. You should take that opportunity. And because I mix the food, then it's lovely. Oh, yes, there's that Brazil nut I put in. Oh, that was a bit of apricots, yes. Yeah. And that's really quite it puts a completely different complexion on breakfast.
Yeah.
So I love breakfast, but I love it even more now.
Excellent.
And I think that's got to be good.
And the same could be said for any meal, just taking a drink, and actually just stopping and focusing on the tastes and the smells and the sensations. Yeah. Or using your shower time we talked about before, didn't we? And actually taking your conscious mind to all the smells and the sensations of your shower, or washing your hands, putting hand cream on. Yeah.
I'm afraid the image that Leslie gave me of a shower full of folk that hasn't gone yet. That has not gone. When I get in the shower, I have to make sure I'm not thinking about anything except what I'm going to smell in there with my soaps and my shower gels, because otherwise there'll be all these people with me.
Shower with you.
Yes, because last week Leslie said, if you're in the shower and you're thinking, actually you've got lots of people in the shower with you. Instead of you just being there thinking about this is my shower. Oh, that feels nice. Oh, that smells nice. Oh, I'm enjoying a bit of head massage. You know what?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Getting away from technology. You know, this is a big subject, and we could talk for hours on this one. But you know, technology, it's huge. It's very pervasive, and it's the opposite of mindful, isn't it? Most of the time, you can get mindful apps and stuff, but if you're out on a dog walk and you're too busy talking into your phone to notice your dog or the surroundings, it's a bit of a wasted opportunity.
Yes.
Or you're shoveling your food while, you know, looking at a news feed or whatever. Technology does encourage us to be thinking, processing. So just getting away from that in itself is a great way to, you know, disconnect from that and be more in the body, more in the, you know, in mindfulness.
I will often, when I'm at work now, quite often, I'll get up from my desk and I'll do a bit of yoga, the twisting and just things like that. It's good for my body, and it also, you know, stops that spiral.
Yes. And it's going to have a lot more health benefits as well doing that, hasn't it? Because just, you know, being sat at a computer all the time has, you know, makes us stiff and tense, and
does. Yeah.
So that's like a double whammy, a bit of mindfulness and a bit of movement. Yeah, it's great.
Really helps. Yeah.
Great. Well, another fabulous session. We're going to have to leave it there for today, but I'm looking forward to the next one. So thank you so much for your your thoughts and insights. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.